Okay, hello there, wherever you may be watching or indeed listening to us. This is Melbourne Real from the world's most livable city, Melbourne, Australia. I'm your host, Tony Jack the Bear Mantz. I'm a master engineer, I'm a motivational speaker, I do all kinds of wonderful things. And here along with my wonderful co-host, the main squeeze, Martin Green, who is a singer and songwriter from Damn the Maps, and knower of many, 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 many things. And we're really pleased today to have our special guest, Frank Varrasso from VR, is it?
VPR.
VPR.
Yep.
VPR.
Varrasso PR, yep.
Which is a radio plugging marketing business. So Frank, thanks for coming along today.
It's a pleasure to be here, thank you.
Good to have you here, mate. So, so anyway, Frank, tell us a bit about you and what you do and the kind of work that you get involved in.
Okay, well, look, I've had a number of years in the music industry, around 20 in total thus far. I started off working in a street press magazine here in Melbourne called In Press, which was the music Bible of Melbourne at the time. And I was lucky enough to do a little bit of writing and reviewing of music, and I sold advertising as well. That's kind of how I got into the industry, and that was a really good opportunity for me because it allowed me to gather a black book of the who's who in the Melbourne music industry. At the time, I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was selling a lot of advertising, which meant that I was dealing with, booking agents, concert promoters, publicans, venues, also dealing with, record labels. And so, it gave me a really good opportunity to deal with bands direct as well, who were releasing records at the time or doing shows. A lot of the bands back in those days, were, booking their own advertising and things like that. Record labels were coming in. I guess all the arts people were coming in as well, talking about their exhibitions or their theatre productions and things like that. So I managed to deal with a lot of those people on a weekly basis, which then allowed me to amass a serious level of contacts. So that was a lot of fun, and I was really passionate about music.
Is that something ever since you were young, or was it?
Yeah, for a long time I was really into music, but I never played an instrument. Always loved listening to it. Was a big fan of Australian music in particular when I was growing up, and loved bands like The Church and the Sunny Boys and Flowers and bands of that ilk. So yeah, I guess, dealing with a lot of the record labels, I was privy to a lot of new releases, and seeing a lot of the promotional reps on a weekly basis was a lot of fun too, and that really interests me. I was very interested in the machinations of a record company and how it all worked, which allowed me then to find out when jobs were coming up, and given that I was across a lot of the Melbourne band scene, club scene, etc. It helped me, I guess, apply for some of these positions, given that I knew a lot of people in Melbourne. I guess put me in a position where I was, highly regarded, I think, from a record company perspective, and I was lucky enough to apply for a position as a Victorian promotions manager for Warner Music Australia many years ago, and I was lucky enough to get the gig, and I've been with a number of labels since then. I was with Warner, and then went to EMI, and from EMI to Festival Mushroom Records to Sony BMG, and I then decided to start my own business.
What prompted that?
Look, I think the thing that really got me excited about going out on my own was the fact that, there were a lot of releases. You know, the digital age was really kicking in, and what I found was that there were a lot of releases. My team at Sony at the time were, sending a lot of records to radio, as was, Universal, Warner, EMI. All the labels were, dropping a large number of singles each week to radio. Now, anyone that knows radio knows that you can't possibly play everything that's brought in. There's only 24 hours in a day, and there's only so much music you can play throughout the day. So I was fielding a lot of calls from a lot of managers internationally who were asking whether or not their records were priorities for the company at the time. And unfortunately, not all of them were. And it was a shame, because there was a lot of really good music being released by all the labels, and for many, many years. And there's still a lot of really good music that never sees the light of day. And I thought that probably gave me a really good opportunity to really consider starting my own company and representing these artists that were probably less likely to be heard. So
tell me, what are the criteria that radio stations look for to play something new, and how do you best persuade them to play something that's a little bit different, or for them to maybe step outside the box a little or take a bit of a risk?
Well, look, at the end of the day, Tony, it always comes down to the song itself. If the song fits the format of the station, then you've got one foot in the door. And it needs to be specific to their demographic. It needs to fit within their demographic. It needs to fit within the format, sound of the station. And it needs to be a really hooky, melodic track that listeners will gravitate towards. It might be, a really good song, but if it's not likely to connect with their listeners, then chances are you probably won't get played.
So the next question one might ask is then, do you actually propose anything different to the norm, or do you vet it first and obviously go, well, this is obviously standard Triple J stuff?
Yeah, look, I need to categorise tracks because at the end of the day, when you have, a music director sitting at a radio station receiving a ridiculous number of songs, I would hazard a guess that Triple J probably receive 180 singles a week. They can't possibly play all of those,
let alone listen to them all during.
Exactly.
Screen them.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to be you need to screen them beforehand and not waste people's time. It is a business. So the thing that that I'm really mindful of is wasting people's time. I don't particularly want to go in with a song that wavers too far from what that station plays. Because at the end of the day, I know I would be wasting people's time, and they don't have a lot of time as it is. Everyone's pretty time poor. So, I need to, I guess, compartmentalise every song into which format it fits. But having said that, there is a lot of bleed into other radio. So, there are certain songs that are not necessarily format specific that can kind of cross over to a number of other formats at radio, and there's plenty of those songs actually when you think about it. So occasionally I might go in and play something that's a little left field to a few people, and by doing that, I'm not necessarily asking them to add the song immediately. Sometimes it's a matter of let me get this song added somewhere else for you first to stoke the fire, and then once we're blazing, you can jump on board. So that happens sometimes.
I've noticed as well, that you might get to say PBS or Triple R first, get a fair bit of work there, and then Triple J go, you know what, let's pick that one up now.
That's it,
yeah.
And that's precisely what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's So yeah, it's interesting, and it's a tough job because you need to have the ears, and sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes I'll think that a song's an absolute hit, and find that it's not.
Or it doesn't get past that person on that particular day.
Correct.
It's just not feeling it, man.
That's right.
Yeah. Because let's face it, it's just opinion. It's all art is, isn't it?
Exactly. It's and that's why I'm a firm believer that with a lot of acts that approach me about music, it's one knockback might be all it takes for them to get discouraged, but at the end of the day, it's one person's opinion. And
That's
music, and music is a very emotional game. So it touches everyone differently. So these are the things that you need to take into consideration.
How often would you push something because it sounds, let's say, very similar to something that's currently popular right now?
It happens regularly.
Yeah.
And it's. It reaches a point where I have to say no, because if there's like right now, there's that real sort of electronic R&B soul thing that's happening with the Chet Fakers and the Jared James, etc. There's a lot of artists that are, releasing material of that ilk at the moment. And when it reaches a situation where, too much is too much, it makes it very difficult because all of a sudden a particular radio station will be inundated with that sort of style or genre of music, and it might be fantastic. But if a radio station plays too much of the same thing, then it causes people to listen elsewhere.
Yes.
And hence the push button, the TSLs, time spent listening to a radio station, is a crucial thing, because if people are advertising on radio and they're not listening, what tends to happen is that the income doesn't come in, the lights don't stay on, and
licenses don't get paid.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So it's sometimes the radio industry is a business. So
that it is.
Yeah,
that it is. And go on.
I remember in 1998 in New Zealand, we went in and we met with the program director, and we were self-managed, and they picked us up, put us on high rotate because we sounded like Placebo. Placebo was so hot at the time.
Yep.
And I was a bit younger. The vocals were a little bit more, whinier, nasally, and we landed it. And it was exactly the reason what he said. He said, "You guys sound shit hot, just like Placebo right now. Let's do it." Lock you in.
Yeah. Look, and I think too, back in the early days, I think music was really exciting. I know when I first started as a promotions manager, it was becoming more and more of a business, the radio game. But I knew that a lot of music directors, I felt 20 years ago, programmed on gut feel and instinct, and less on research. So if a music director felt it and believed in it, a song, they would play it.
It's funny you should mention that moment. I remember once being back in my Triple M days, walking into Lee Simon's office, and maybe you were the PR guy at the time, but he brought in Tom Jones, If I Only Knew.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And I remember walking into his office one day, and Tom Jones had been out of the scene in the mainstream for a long, long period of time.
Yep.
So
We're talking about Welsh Tom Jones,
Welsh
right?
Tom Jones, yeah.
And think Triple M too.
And I walked in and I said, "Hey Lee, how's it going?" And he reckons, "Listen to this." And he was like so excited over this record, and he goes, "You're not going to believe it's fucking Tom Jones." And yes, that was, I thought, wow.
Is this pre or post the Hard to Handle cover?
Oh, I don't remember the Hard to Handle cover at all.
The Black Crows.
Oh,
Light your candle because money, I'm so hard to handle. That one. It doesn't matter.
You know what? I think it was around the same time.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I think it was post. I think it was post because I
don't think I've heard it.
I remember.
It's a pretty good cover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty reasonable. Yeah.
I remember the because I serviced that track.
Yeah.
And
he was so excited.
Yeah.
And it was like, and in fact, I think that the day you brought it in, and was the day it went on there that day, I think, or the next day. But it went in very fucking quickly. It didn't have, you know. It was,
Yeah.
So that's an example of what you're talking about.
Well, I remember, Lee was one of those guys, that really went with his gut. And sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it was really hard. I recall, and this was, I think, just before I started at Warner, but I recall REM's Automatic had come out. And the promo guy that I used to work with before I'd started at Warner was bringing in car parts into Triple M's reception. And you might remember this, Tony, but he bought in a steering wheel and,
literally car parts.
Literally put it in and left it at...
Thought it was some Australian band I'd never heard of.
He left a steering wheel, in reception and Lee wouldn't play the song or didn't feel it at the time. And so each week more and more parts came in to the point where Lee was losing his mind. And seriously, I believe, I was told, this is a true story, that reception looked like a junkyard.
Right.
There were chassis and car seats and all sorts of bits and bolts and pieces in there to the point where...
up until everybody hurts, pretty much.
Exactly. And essentially what had happened was that Lee said, okay, look, you guys clear that reception area and I'll give it a spin and we'll see how it goes. And the rest is history.
Was that the song?
I think it was Automatic. I think it was. I think it was Everybody Hurts.
Yeah.
But I think it was before but it was before I started. It wasn't long before I started, but true story. I mean, Red Hot Chili Peppers was serviced to radio. A very close friend of mine serviced that. It was before my time.
Was this Blood Sugar Sex Magic?
It was, yeah. That was serviced 6 or 8 times to radio.
And that would have been Under the Bridge?
Correct.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, it was serviced 6 or 8 times before radio actually said, okay, we'll give it a go.
Should have done Suck My Kiss first because that's pumping.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So
how much do you think now, I think that certainly my impression was at the time there was a lot of looking... safety, looking towards what's happening in America, what's happening before anyone would play it. Like I remember a situation where back when I was doing Party Hard with Phil Kay, we played Everything But the Girl, Todd Terry's mix of Missing. Mm-hmm. And we just snuck it in there because we had a list that we had to give the radio program, this is what we're going to put on this week. And it was number 1 in America that week. It was just blowing up everywhere and no one was playing it at all. And we just conveniently left off the list and dropped it in there. And I remember I said, that was on the list. What the fuck was that? I said, well, it's the number 1 fucking record on Billboard this week.
Yeah.
Number 1 fucking melody maker. It's it's huge.
It's hot.
It's doing okay right now.
It seems to get it seems to be getting a little bit of traction. Yeah. And oddly enough, next week I started playing it. It's crazy.
Yeah, look, it happens a lot. It happens more, I think, today than ever before. And the reason for that is predominantly, particularly here in Australia, we don't have, hundreds and thousands of, radio stations like they have in the US. So our market's a lot tighter. We have currently, 3 CHR chart hit radio networks, and having 3 CHR stations in one city alone, in particularly Melbourne and Sydney, is it's really tight. Really tight. They're all vying for the same dollar.
Is that a fear? You think it's a fear-based thing?
Well, it's tough because, to be honest, radio is a business, as I said before, and music is the bullshit between the ads.
Yeah.
They need to sell ads to keep the lights on. So essentially, and I don't mean that in a facetious manner. It's a business.
You bang on the nose, man. Yeah. You bang on. Yeah.
It's what it is. So, when you're vying for the Harvey Normans of the world, the McDonald's, and the
Hello,
the Frank Walkers of the world, they're the ones that, essentially, pay big bucks
and pay the bills.
Yeah. And pay the bills.
And is radio still same as it was back when I was explained it by one of these guys, one of the program managers, that they're taking, of all the time that they can actually play music that isn't news, that isn't ads, that isn't whatever, those 11-minute blocks or whatever, the 12-minute blocks or whatever, they're still breaking it down like we've got to have 1 gold track, 1 A track, 1 B. Nothing's changed, right?
No, it's very strategic. Yeah. There are certain.
There's a lot of science in there, and even I think the program they used back then, I don't know if it was Selector, I think.
Yeah.
And they put these tracks in, and there was this, it was color coded, and there was, like you said, the
Gold.
different categories.
Yep.
And there was this like an algorithm.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I was surprised.
Yeah. And I was really quite surprised about how much science and psychology plays. I remember Kate. It was Mason. Kate Mason, who was music director at Triple M, and I was back then, and she was telling me that the average punter, it would take 16 weeks for a song to be played on a high rotation 3 times a day, for it to actually
register.
Yeah. And I remember they get these part-time kids, in their office, and they'd be ringing people like surveys and saying, "Hey, have you heard this song? Do you like this song? What about this one? What about this one?" And it was really quite, like he said, very strategic, and a lot of science and data, and and it's interesting because, as you alluded to before, music's about feelings, about emotion.
Now they've got the internet. My friend belongs to a select group of 40. I think they're a Facebook group with Triple M, and they this group of 40, because they've called in and then had so many dealings with them, they can suggest whatever they want, and these guys and Triple M listen.
Yep, they do.
It's awesome. Fortunately, that good friend recommended us, and they played us because of her. It's awesome.
Well, that's it. It's that would be Triple M's music jury.
That's it. That's the one. Yep.
And look, radio need to listen and respond, but it has become extremely fragmented in that regard. Back in the day when I started, it seemed to be more driven by gut feel and emotion.
And even back in the day, I think DJs, and I remember when I did my Saturday night thing, I was able to go and indicate I said, "Hey, listen, what do you think about these ones?" And I, sometimes I'd do a few little re-edits and remixes and all that sort of stuff. And she was fairly open. I mean, she was fairly open to it. But I don't know about these days if an announcer could walk in. If Tom and Michelle could go in the Nova's program director, do you think they'd have that kind of pull these days? Or they're just like, "Hey, you guys are here, you're celebrities, you
press the button.
Shut the fuck up, press the buttons, here's the sponsors, blah, blah, blah.
Do your joke, Joker. Tell your jokes."
Yeah, look, I don't think that happens anymore, purely, particularly at the commercial stations, purely because there's so much more at stake. And there's more research done now. There's a lot of online research. Some radio networks do research that is, I guess, based on having 1,000 or so people sitting in a hall and having headphones on. I can't remember what they call that now, but it's an interesting concept.
You're not talking about a silent disco, are you?
Sorry, no. But they research a lot of things now. They research how long how much time spent listening, how long it is before people push the button and move to another station. They research for familiarity in a song. They research for likes for potential in a song. They research for burn before which is when someone's had enough. Yeah.
You like James Blunt sort of burn.
To a degree. I mean, we've all been there,
wasn't he? He was the first artist ever to get completely banned from that London radio station. Yeah. There were that many people just writing in and calling, going, "Stop it! Stop
enough
it.
already." Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, we've all been there. We've all heard songs that we go, "Oh my God, if you play that one more time, I'm going to go postal."
They do the same thing with what was it? That fucking Korean fucking thing. That
Psy, PSY.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
Psy.
Yeah. That fucking Gangnam Style shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, what's your most treasured romantic time for radio, and what station was it, and what period?
The
was
halcyon days, Frank.
Yeah. What was it? What was you were listening to radio, going, "This is fucking good radio."
Oh boy, that happens a lot.
Still happens now?
Yeah, it still happens. I mean, there are moments where you fall in love with a song and someone shares that emotion. I think is great. I mean, I recall. My memory's that bad sometimes. I think the most recent one would have been an international artist by the name of Zhu, Z-H-U, who had a single called Faded. I remember having the song sent to me by a manager from overseas who I'd never met before, and he said, "I'd love for you to have a listen to this song, Frank. Let me know what you think." And I was at the airport at the time, and I was about to fly from Sydney back home to Melbourne, and I had about 10 minutes, so the laptop was open, so I took the opportunity to listen to this song, and I loved it. After one listen, I thought, wow, this is a really good song. And then I had the urge to play it again very quickly, which doesn't happen often.
Good sign though, isn't it?
Very good sign. So I played it again and again, and had to run to the gate to ensure I didn't miss my my flight, because I only had a link on it, and obviously we couldn't use phones or anything like that on the airline. And so I had to wait a glorious hour and a half to hear it again until I landed in Melbourne, and it was doing my head in. I love this song that much. It was just amazing. And anyhow, so I connected with management and discovered that it hadn't been released anywhere in the world, and I was keen to work it, and I was going to be the first one to take it to radio anywhere. So I was really excited about that because I thought the song was amazing. And there's always those nerves where you kind of think, will everyone else think the same about this song, or am I just... I'm just
on another planet.
On another planet.
I get that every month. I download a particular playlist every month of 160 songs, work my way through it. I'll usually pick up 4 or 5, and then I'll play them to my girlfriend and my friends and colleagues and stuff. And I'm always doing the same thing. Will they like it? Whatever. And sometimes it's just a massive hit. And most of the time, these songs will never get played here in Australia ever. They just won't make it because they're from all over. But but that's how I find music. Just 5 a month, man. That's all I get.
Well, that's the thing. It's a rarity now, and there's so much good music out there.
There is. Yeah,
and the internet's been a big game changer. I think with radio, radio has always been a bit of a funnel. It's only
record labels have always been a funnel. Absolutely. If you didn't get signed, the world never heard about you pretty much, did they? Now the internet's there and everybody can hear about everybody.
And that's pretty much. And years ago, that's where most of my music came. Growing up, that was with the radio. That was where I got it. And then when the internet came on, I started hearing more and more. But I guess the question I'm leading to is, where do you see the relevance of radio in the current market in the internet age, digital age, and with the advent of more and more digital radio stations, and as more and more cars in the future will be fitted with digital radio receivers and whatnot, and just the fact that people now can Spotify and all these different streaming services and subscribe to whatever. Where do you see the relevance of radio? Where's it sitting now? Where do you sit in the future, given where we're going with all these new technologies and whatnot?
Look, I think radio still has a very strong life form. In moving forward, I guess I still think it's important. I think it will still remain to be. I think radio are diversifying as well. They're moving with the times, and then they've now got podcasts happening, covering certain genres. They've got digital radio stations that are more genre specific.
Whatever it takes to fill that gap between ads.
Yeah, to a degree, but it's what it is. It's actually providing music to those that want a particular genre or style of music, but it also allows people to jump on and listen to a show they may have missed because of work or because it was on at some ludicrous hour in the morning. So they are now being, a bit more, a little wiser, I guess, in providing their listeners with the opportunity to catch up on shows. No different to catch up TV. Look, the internet has changed things a lot. I look at my kids, and they're in the they're 12, 17, both my kids, and they don't listen to radio that much, but they're on YouTube all the time, and they'll discover music through YouTube. I've got friends my age who religiously listen to radio, and other friends who will jump onto Spotify and listen to new music. Others will jump on Apple Music and listen to a certain genre, whether it be classic alternative or
real hip hop.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's. I think radio still has a purpose. I think it's just they need to get smarter as to how they deliver it.
Absolutely.
And I think too that once radio get to a point where they can have digital radio in cars, that will change a lot of things.
Howard Stern a couple of years ago, I think he made a big stink about it, and he just left. Was it Z100? I think it was on. Anyway,
yeah.
And just said, fuck you, and digital's the future, and everyone laughed at him. But yet, and I guess that leads to what I was going to ask you about presenters and personalities.
Crucial.
What do you? I remember the time around 99 when all the whole Austereo Village Roadshow takeover happened. Before 2000, and I think that was the death of the halcyon days for me. I mean, it changed, but then it was all about, you saw things like AFL footy players being online, Test cricket players being online, TV, and I think the rationale was, again, it was a strategic business thing of like, well, this guy's on a top rating TV show, so we'll probably got a chance of getting some of those viewers over here.
And although you'll never see his face, we'll put his face all over billboards.
Correct.
Because it's his face. It's that guy, right?
And you see more and more of that. Like you got people on, for example, the project, the news show we have here in national news show we have in this country, and a lot of these people from Nova, Tommy, would become and all this cross promotion. So, what do you think? Like, if you were running a radio station, knowing what you know about radio, what sort of things did you look for in a personality? What would you hope to get? I guess it's a very open-ended question. But
again, you're looking at the demographic of the station. You're looking at the music that you play, and your personality has to, I guess, fit in line with where that radio station sits, and you've got to be mindful of who your target audience is, and have announcers that fit the mold. I mean, you look at Smooth FM, and having people like David Campbell and Richard Wilkins and people of that ilk.
Richard Wilkins amazes me. For all people say about him, this is a guy who's a true fucking survivor. I mean, for all the hate that he probably gets, but that guy though, I take my hat off to him. He's older than me, and he still somehow is able to
cruise along,
do his thing, remain relevant. I mean, he's obviously there for a reason, and they wouldn't have him on the Today Show. They wouldn't have him on these stations unless they felt that he had some kind of he connects with the audience.
Well, he does, yeah.
And irrespective of whatever people may think of him, but I mean, that guy's a survivor. I mean, I totally respect Richard Wilkins. He's, to be able to go through decades now, because I remember him, he was doing Australian MTV back in the day. I mean, he's the real deal as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you look at Smooth, where Kate Mason is now the music director, and they're going.
She's
for
a survivor too, man.
That's because she's very good.
She is
what she does.
She's very good. There's no doubt about it, and a hard fucking worker too. At that, anyway, go on.
So you look at the music that they play, and they're targeting a certain demographic that likes songs to be nice and easy and chilled and smooth, and and when you have announcers with dulcet tones delivering you songs that because you've heard them before, and a couple of new ones thrown in that aren't going to create too much of a wave.
You might actually know the exact quote, Martin, because you're good at this shit. Chris Rock did a quote. I'm just paraphrasing. You might know the one about you'll always remember the songs that you were fucking to.
Right.
Was that?
I don't remember the quote, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So there's something about your formative years and the songs that you grew up with.
What's that? What is that those Smooth FM guys do? What is it? The love request. There's always like a little hour.
Love songs and dedications.
There we go.
That's on ARN.
ARN.
ARN. That's on Mix.
So, but that guy's. I once described it as Sonic Mogadon, you know.
But he had an audience.
He did, and women would love it. You know, I'll play this on my I split up with my boyfriend. Please send him this song.
That's the one. We had that back in New Zealand on Radio I. Classic Radio I, smooth.
There you go.
Yeah.
Shock jocks. Whatever happened to the shock jocks? Or the jocks for me, I think the guys that I recall had, like, I mean, I don't have John Peters as necessarily a shock jock, but the guys who had the personality, who were afraid to sort of, you know, be a little bit more controversial, it seems to be lacking. I guess, I mean, I don't listen to a great deal of radio, apart from AM in my very expensive stereo.
I'm sure those vocals love that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. But what's his name?
Well, look, I think, just on that, I mean, I think it's a business now, as we alluded to before, and you can cost the company a lot of money by stepping out of line.
Yeah. Do you think political correctness, though, is starting?
Absolutely, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's and sometimes I think we just need to just chill out just a little bit. Not everything that's I guess said is meant in a harmful or derogatory way, but I think I think a lot of on-air announcers have to be extremely careful.
There's a lot of people on the internet
what they
who
say.
Spend their entire lives just trying to get offended at absolutely everything they possibly can. There's always somebody that's going to get offended at someone will get offended at me telling about people getting offended. It's ridiculous now.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the day when I never was on the books as such. I went in for a 2-week fill-in 1992. Lee gave me a 2-week fill-in, and that 2 weeks lasted for 7.5 years.
Yeah.
The longest fortnight of my life, and the most fun too, for that matter. But I remember it over that period of time. From that point, there were certain station ID tags you had to say, and you back announce a song, and there was promotions of the station and competitions and all that kind of stuff. But there was a little bit of scope for you to be able, and you get hauled into the office on a Monday morning with Lee, and you'd record an air check. There was a machine there that would just go on every time the mic was on. So you would and he'd sit there and he'd give you some feedback. But there was a fair bit of leeway. As time went on, that just got tighter and tighter and tighter, to the point where it almost became virtually scripted. And then it went from that to, and this is around the time when all the takeover was happening, when Triple M moved into the Osteria building in St Kilda Road there. And it went from that to, because there'd be a playlist and it would tell you, all right, this is where you come in and do your thing. And there was nothing. I thought there was a misprint or something, and it just stopped. So we went from that to just being button pushers, and I lost my shit at the time. And so I just decided to just be a bit of a maverick. And I got a call from the radio, the music at the time. What the fuck are you doing? And I quit in the middle of my shift on air. I said, all right, cunt, you come in and fucking do it. I'm over this shit. And I said, I'm serious. You got 15 minutes, and as we're coming, you got 12 minutes. You got 10 minutes. I'm serious. I'm fucking out of here. And he came in, and I was just giving him a hard time about it. I mean, look, I was completely out of line. I was hauled in the general manager's office on the Monday, told off, read the riot act, and apparently I'd broken the law, and I could have been fined $20,000 fucking dollars and what have you. But that was my spectacular exit from radio. So, but it was sad. I just thought it was sad, and seeing guys like Carl Van Ast, who was a fucking legend back in the 80s, to be relegated to doing what he was doing. I guess he needed the money, but yeah, it was just no fucking respect. And the way they treated Billy Pennell, Billy's he's the most beautiful soul.
Lovely guy.
And one day I'd love to get him on. If he knows so much about music, and he's been through, and the way they treated him was absolutely appalling. I mean, this guy's an absolute national treasure.
He's a treasure, absolutely.
One of the worst things I think that happened to radio was the auto DJ in the mornings. I would only listen to radio over the last 15 years since I moved to Australia. In the mornings, the clock radio clicks on, and when that is the same song every single day, because that auto DJ is just doing what it's doing, and it's not even random.
Yep.
And I found myself changing radio station every 3 weeks, just waking up and going, oh, fuck this, God damn it. And they're all guilty of it, all of them.
Yeah.
And I just keep switching backwards and forwards, AAA, Triple J, Triple R, PBS, and it's like, please subscribe. Please, can you just please subscribe? Please, is this guy subscribe? Can you subscribe? Fuck that. I'm not listening to that. I'm not waking up every day just to some dude telling me to subscribe, you know. And Triple R, I'd bounce back to them, and it would be like, nah, man, this just isn't working. I think the auto DJ was just a total motherfucker, eh?
Well, mate, even today, I mean, in the gym, they just kind of switch between stations, but it's amazing that within that hour I'm there, I can almost predict what they're going to play.
Absolutely. Yep. I walk into a little junk shop around the corner. I know that, you know, I know the 5 or 6 songs I'm going to hear Piano Man. I'm going to hear Piano Man every time I walk into that shop, and I almost every time do. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is bad. Look, and I think that's, you know, that's just lazy programming, I guess. I think you just need to, you know,
put a human back in
you know
there.
what,
Give somebody a job, man.
To be honest, yeah, no, I agree. But, you know, I even find listening to some internet radio stations now too, you just know that there are certain songs that are on a high rotation that you know you're going to hear within that hour.
Absolutely. And like getting into a taxi, you're just destined to hear, tonight's going to be a good night. Of course you're going to hear that. Of course you're going to hear that. I tell you what I miss. For me, the golden era of radio for me was BFM. BFM in New Zealand. It's the biggest student radio station in the country, and it's got a phenomenal listenership. And I discovered just so many wonderful things there. You know, you could turn it on at 2:30 in the morning, and it would be the first time you'd hear Glory Box by Portishead, you know, 1994, and you just, what the fuck is this song? Who the hell are these guys? I discovered Korn. I discovered so many bands. Massive Attack. You know, I'd never heard anything like this. And the guy in the morning was a very Stone. What's his name? Howard Stern. He was a very Howard Sterny kind of guy. His name was Mikey Havoc, and he was a rock star from a band called Push Push back in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
And he was just a personality like you'd never heard. And he ran his radio station. He ran his show so differently to the way Australian works, in that he'd be playing a song. It's the song's playing happily, no problem. He'd just pull the volume back. Hey, we've got a caller on the line while the song's playing. What do you got to say? Mikey, did you hear? This shit's just gone down in fucking Pakuranga, man. Holy shit. And his finger was so on the fucking pulse because it was so interactive. And this is 1998, 97, 98, 99. You'd get up in the morning, you'd turn it on, and you'd play Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. And then he'd play Phoenix, and he'd go, I fucking know this band's going to make it. Listen to Phoenix. And it was the first time you hear something off Alphabetical, you know, and you just go, boom, boom. You're like, that's fucking so smooth and French. What the fuck? He goes, I guarantee these guys are going to take off. And he was programming by feel. There was never silence. There was never that triple R, you know, coming up next, we've got this shit. No. There was always that fucking boom, 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 just quietly in the background going while he's talking. Yeah. It was just constant energy. And there was him and this guy, Newsboy. It was just golden radio, and that's why they ruled the fucking country, man. They were one of the first guys to do internet radio, and we just couldn't get enough. These guys, and they're still, you know, on form, these motherfuckers. And I moved to Australia, and I go, wow, it's just like 6 comedians, man. I hate to bag out radio, man, but for me, as soon as I hit Australia, I was expecting Triple J to be my savior when I got here, because all we got in New Zealand was this thing called the Triple J Hottest 100. Yeah. And when I got that in 95 or whatever, however old I was, and it was like, who's this band Tool? Holy shit, who's this band, you know, The Breeders? Who's this band fucking whatever? And they all come through Big Day Out, and that's all we get in Auckland, man. Yeah. And we're like, fuck, I can't wait to get to Triple J, eh? And by the time I got there, you know, I'd go into cafes and shit, and I'd be like, where's all the rat? And they're like, yeah, no, Triple J's kind of gone downhill lately. Like, fuck, that was such a letdown for me. Sorry to bag Australian radio, man, but there is still a tragic difference between New Zealand radio and Australian radio. And I think it's one of the primary ones is that they're not stand-up comedians just trying to land their jokes the whole time. They're just regular people who are good at radio. I'm going to stop there because, you know, sorry, but...
No, that's... I'm not offended at all.
That's how I saw it, eh?
I find it interesting because I recently started listening to, you know, Apple Music, and it was bizarre kind of hearing Zane Lowe doing exactly what you just said, stopping a song midway and having a chat about it and going, how freaking good is this song? Yeah. And then getting back to playing the song. And in some cases, you know, he's just stopped the song completely and go, I'm going to play it again.
Yeah, that's great.
It's that good. I'm halfway through, but I'm going to play it again.
Didn't Kenny ever do the same thing with Bohemian Rhapsody. I
Yeah.
think he played 21 times in a row, something ridiculous like that.
Nice one.
It was that's the urban
Because he had control of his show.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and that you know that blew me away. I wasn't, I hadn't been accustomed to that at all. So it was refreshing for me because I thought, hey, this is good. It actually felt real.
And you feel connected. The reason I've always liked listening to radio is because it's happening real time. If a bomb goes off, you'd hope that show would stop the music and go, fuck guys, they've just dropped a nuke on North Korea. Holy shit. You know what I mean? You'd want to know about it. You feel connected to the world when you've got radio on. When you play Apple Music, you're not connected to shit. You're just connected to an algorithm. Yeah. Spotify algorithm. Playing MP3s off your computer. No. There's a connection between television and radio. It's just...
But see, this is why, radio will be, important because it's still going to connect people in that way moving forward. There is, we can all jump online. I do a bit of lecturing at AIM, and I asked a lot of the kids who listens to radio, and they're all like, does W rah 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 in the US count? Others were like, does internet radio count? Does Spotify count? But they still all listen to radio as well. The thing is that radio it's in your face, it's there, and it's real time, and it has to be local. This is why many of the the breakfast shows are from that particular city, because it needs to be. Because if something does happen, they're on it. Because if everything's automated, then it's not going to work.
Although we have seen a lot more nationalisation.
Absolutely.
And programming now. There's probably the state program director, but there's the national director as well. So there's certainly been more and more of that.
Yeah, there's been more syndication of shows. Particularly in Drive. And the hour of power, the best of 1 hour of whatever breakfast radio there happened to be from another state. But this is where the locality of radio is so important, because you're not going to connect with someone who is telecasting their show from interstate and they're not from Melbourne. You would be slightly offended, I would think, and you would probably...
Yeah.
Depends what you're listening for, I think.
I guess so. That certainly comes into it, but I think it's the locality of radio is still very important. But look, having said that, I mean it's phenomenal what radio is going through. I remember being at a radio and records convention in the US, and it was when satellite radio was just kicking in. And I remember being in this massive auditorium, and there were 5 seats or chairs on stage, and 4 of those chairs were filled with large, solid guys in power dress suits, and a guy in the at the end of a stage sitting in a chair in a black t-shirt, board shorts, and flip flops, and he had a ghetto blaster by his side, and I thought that was interesting and stuck around. And each of the suits were representing a particular radio network in the US, the big stuff, Clear Channel, all that kind of stuff. And the guy at the end spoke last and introduced himself, and he was the guy responsible for the new satellite radio that was about to hit America, and had just he had mentioned that with this particular box that you would put in your car or would be attached to your ghetto blaster, you could pick up 100 stations, and it was just TNT radio, time and temperature, and nothing else but music. And you had 100 channels to choose from. You could pause, stop, rewind, whatever you wanted, and the whole room just exploded, and when he dropped the big bomb saying that it's going to be available in Chrysler, Ford, and Toyota and all these other cars within the next 2 or 3 years, the whole place just went nuts. You could see the radio guys going, what the hell is going on?
So these guys had this just they got broadsided by this announcement.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Wow.
Yeah.
That would have been a moment.
It was. It was. I was because I was sitting there with with a few radio people from Australia, just going, Jesus, this is different. I was sitting there thinking, yeah, I could do long drives listening to a particular radio station that played nothing but alternative rock or just hip hop and it would tell me the name of the artist and the song and this was this is a good 15 years ago.
That was actually one of my pet peeves for probably the last. Again, I don't consume a lot of radio, but the idea that you can actually see who the artist is, because many times I'd find, I'd listen to a song midstream and go, fuck, who is it? And so many times they wouldn't back announce the song. And I was just like,
DAB
fuck.
plus clock radios are so good now, eh?
Yeah.
Well, that's it, But, you think also too, Shazam. Now, to me, Shazam is real-time radio research. Radio stations spend a lot of money researching songs, but Shazam to me is the people's voice. You are obviously Shazamming a song in most cases because you think it's uber cool, and you want to know who it is so you can buy it.
It's so scary too when you do Shazam it, and it's playing you the lyrics real time. Like it's just hearing it and going, "Yep, so this is what you want, right?" How are you doing that? Obviously, with the real popular shit, Kanye or whatever, it knows it. It's figured it all out.
Yeah, but it's just amazing, and that's to me, a really good barometer for radio to kind of sit there and go, we don't have to spend that much money anymore, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what people want to hear or what people like. So
it provides at least that sort of critical mass. So
it does, and that's all it is, and it's a good barometer, but it's still, it's still extremely useful, and again, it just seeing it. Is interesting because it, to me, I think it's critical that, if you're hearing a song for the first time, you know what it is. I used to hate as a kid having to wait 3 or 4 songs for a back announce. It used to drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Phoning in.
And did you used to have the
I had my 2 fingers poised on play and record. Yep.
Yeah. Make your own little mixtapes.
That's it.
Yeah.
One question I've got, how do DAB radios pay the bills? With no ads? Coffee, SBS
I don't know. I don't know how they do that. I don't know. I know that they, were getting sponsors on board, and there are some small ad breaks, but I think it's just that'll start to pay for itself in time. I think radio stations just need to take a hit. Or are taking a hit at the moment. I think once they become standard in vehicles, that'll be game on.
And then the ads will start creeping in and away she goes.
Oh, yep, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think we might wind it up
Sure.
at that point. You've been awesome, man.
Plenty more to talk about, mate.
We should get you another time,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Because I'd love to hear some stories about ones that you can tell about just artists and interesting anecdotes and stories that you want to share.
Tom Jones was. It's funny you mentioned him before because he was a doozy.
Yeah.
You haven't played basketball with Prince yet, have you?
Oh no, I've had to face the opposite direction with Prince in an elevator. I was asked to turn around.
Righto. Yeah,
face the wall.
he was a bit busy. Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's some stories, some good ones.
Yeah.
But
Never look Prince directly in the eye. Yeah.
No, well, you weren't allowed to. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's lucky the elevators weren't mirrored at those times too.
Yeah. All right then, mate. Well,
All
thank
right.
you.
Good.
Nice one.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks.
Good to see you. And we'll. I don't have an outro for that, but I'm gonna work on an outro.
No problems at all.
We got a good intro.
This is Tony Jack the Bear Mantz. I'm Martin Green. Thanks, Frank Varrasso. This is Melbourne Real. Peace.